Welcome to the Crown Council's Young Dentist Mentorship Library. I'm Stuart Anderson. In this episode, we learn from internet search guru Lane Anderson, who is an expert when it comes to marketing dental practices online. Lane Anderson owns Prospecta Marketing, a Crown Council resource partner that specializes in driving internet traffic to your website and then converting those visitors into buyers. He knows the pitfalls and best practices of everything online. So I asked him to come on and share some of the basic principles behind internet search optimization. Every practice should know how to reach key patients, and Lane is the expert in knowing those things. We spend about 45 minutes together going over what he believes can make you shine online. We hope you enjoy the episode, and that's it. Enjoy. Welcome, Lane. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Stuart. It's great to be with you, and appreciate this opportunity to share some things that I hope will be helpful to this group to understand the importance of online marketing and how to optimize their online visibility and conversion so that they can find great new patients for their practice. So just to give you a quick roadmap as to what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk a little bit about, and then we're going to delve into some essentials, strategic targeting, how to create that visibility and how that works, and then some opportunities for tracking and assessment and how that is very important to the whole equation. We'll also talk then about a couple of more recent developments that are vastly affecting your effectiveness with online search and how you can best adapt what you're doing based on those developments. So with that, let me start first of all with a little bit of perspective about online search. We have seen a massive change over the last 10, 15 years in terms of consumer behavior, and where consumers might have gone to the images in the phone book years ago. Today, 97% of consumers use the internet to find local businesses. And you can see from this study that was done, the frequency with which they do that is pretty extensive. 71% said they do that at least 6 times a year. More than half of them, 54%, at least once a month. There are really only 3% that never use the internet, which is a pretty small portion of the population. And when you look at dentistry specifically, it's very high on the list of businesses that they go to search for on the internet. 38% of those in this study said that they searched for a dentist or doctor in the past 12 months. And you can see that it's the second highest category that they do searches for. So the internet's critically important to intersect with these prospects that are looking for a dentist and to be there. And it's important to be sure that we're focusing attention where it matters most. So we're all familiar with Google. It's obviously the largest source of for search, and accounts for probably anywhere from 2/3 to 80% of the traffic of people searching for a new dentist. It distributes its results to Ask and AOL.com. Second in importance would be Bing, and for a while Bing was distributing its paid advertising to Yahoo, so those two have been affiliated. That partnership's starting to break up now, but can be in many markets a very important opportunity to access some additional consumers that might not be as reached as readily with Google. And so it's important to consider those. This little guy in the middle, DuckDuckGo, is a relatively new search engine that's probably less than 1% of the search traffic, but their claim to fame is that they supposedly don't track your search activity, but we still get them in the reporting. But anyway, they're showing up a little bit. So given the importance of what consumers are doing to find a new dentist, It's important that we have presence online. So let's talk a little bit about some of the essentials on how to do that and be effective at it. We're going to talk about some strategic targeting, how to create visibility, and then tracking and assessment. Now, targeting effectively is critical with search. And three of the things that are very helpful in starting out before you ever do anything online is to identify three things. Ask yourself, what type of patient do I want to attract? Ask yourself questions like, do I want to treat kids? Do I want to attract them, or am I willing to just take them as they come? Or am I strictly an adult practice? And make sure that everything that you're doing is reflecting that target audience. So, for example, if we're strictly an adult practice, we don't want to be showing pictures on our website that have parents and kids. We want to reflect adults. On the other hand, if we're trying to attract kids, we want to make sure that there are a number of photos on our website that show children. Secondly, what kind of services do you want to promote? It doesn't make sense to be out marketing services that you don't want to be doing. So there may be some things that you offer in your practice that you do because they're helpful to your patients, but maybe you don't want to be attracting more patients for some of those services, whereas other things you may want to be doing more of, and those are the things you ought to focus on in your marketing. And then third, pay attention to the geography you want to draw from. There are going to be certain areas that are going to be particularly helpful in attracting new patients, maybe some others where you don't want to be spending money if it's not effective in that market area. So give some thought to where it makes sense to market. With that in mind, then comes our messaging, and we need to think about the positioning and what makes your practice unique from their perspective. Now, maybe you're not going to go as far as this practice did in terms of creating a very unusual office, but there may be particular things about how you practice or how you take care of patients that make us unique. Maybe it's some of the services you offer. Maybe it is a particular practice philosophy. There may be a number of things that make your practice unique, but think about what it is that would attract patients to your practice. And then third, we often tend to get caught up in processes and services and things that we're doing in the office. What the consumer is going to care about is benefits versus features. They want to know what you can do for them. And so think in terms of advertising, marketing, those benefits that you have to offer them and the end result. When you look at a McDonald's advertisement, you'll see that what they tend to promote is great appetite appeal. It's the end result of their product and how appetite, we call it selling the sizzle. And so as you think about what's important to your patients, think about the conversations you have with them and what they talk about being meaningful to them as you've provided service. Look at the reviews that you're getting and what people say about your practice, and that'll help you in terms of focusing on some of these benefits you can offer and the things that are most meaningful to your consumers. Now, next thing we want to talk about is how do you then create this visibility so that we can attract patients to your practice? Search marketing is a little different than mass marketing. In mass marketing, we are taking a message and blanketing the market and hoping to attract some people that have interest in what we have to say. With search marketing, we are basically getting in their path as they already have interest and they're initiating the activity in the search. So we have to be sure that we have great visibility when they go to look for a service that we have to offer. And as you look at a typical search page, this is one in Google. At the top of that search page, you'll see anywhere from 1 to 4 paid ads. There will be 3 more down at the bottom. That pay-per-click advertising is important. We'll talk about kind of how to make that effective. Secondly, you'll find local listings if this is a search that suggests that there is a local business. So if we're searching for a cosmetic dentist, that would suggest to the search engine that there is a physical location attached to that, and it will trigger this map pack with 3 listings and a map. In addition to that, then below that are 10 organic or natural listings at the bottom of the page. So we have on this page potentially 20 different listings, opportunities to show up. And in addition to these 3 key areas we're going to talk about, there are some additional opportunities beyond that that are also ways that we can create visibility. So let me talk about these 3 key ones, because they are kind of the 3 critical legs of the stool that are going to help hold this together. Search engine optimization, the first of those are what we call results in organic listings. Those are those 10 listings lower on the search page. And our target here are location-specific keywords. So for example, dental implants San Antonio. I have a location attached to that search, and it suggests a specific market. Some tips: best to focus on maybe 1 to 3 primary locations. If we start to get a lot more than that, it starts to diffuse the focus, and the search engines may not pick it up quite as readily. Likewise, when we look at a particular search page, we want to limit that to 1 to 3 target keywords per page, so that it's focused, and ideally all the content on that page is going to be focused around that topic. This has changed a little in the last few years. It used to be the game was just to load the page with lots of keywords and get that on the page as many times as you possibly could. Today, Google's more sophisticated in identifying what that page is about and pulling that into the search results. So good to stay focused on that page about a particular topic and make sure there's good relevant topic content on that page. Certainly okay to list a few additional locations in the footer of the page and include zip codes. Keep that to a modest number, maybe 3 to 5 and 2 or 3 zip codes. We used to be able to just put a ton of those down at the bottom of the page. Google doesn't smile on that very much anymore. There are other opportunities with blogs that can create great content on your website to encourage the search engine to come back to your website frequently. Videos, if they're optimized, can be a great way to create an additional reason for them to put content on the page. And interestingly, sometimes now on mobile phones, those videos are showing up above the organic results. So that can be a way to you can create some presence and visibility on that page, even above the organic results. Microsites that are focused on a particular service or a particular location can sometimes be helpful as well, with some focused content that is helping consumers understand that and create some authority on it. Second leg of that stool is the pay-per-click advertising. And this is broadening the net for core service searches. So what if somebody just goes online and searches for dental implants? There's no location attached to it. They're just looking for that particular service. Now, you're going to be competing with the world for rankings at that point, because there's nothing to pull it in, but we can limit the geography in which we're showing those ads so that you can show at the very top of those search results for a very broad search like that. Sometimes we'll add some location-specific keywords in those ads also to increase the click-through rate. So we might do some additional ads for dental implants San Antonio that would broaden your visibility for that search as well, even if you have some presence in the organic listings. It's important with pay-per-click advertising, though, to make sure that you've budgeted it enough for impact. Going in with a very, very timid budget often doesn't create the visibility and the impact that's necessary for this to be effective. And we find when we start out with doctors in particularly, this pay-per-click advertising is going to be critically important for creating that presence and visibility early on as the organic builds over some time. So a lot of doctors ask us, why do I need both SEO and pay-per-click? Can't I just get by with search engine optimization? The answer is very simple. You need both because it increases dominance on the search page. And the more visibility that you have and dominance on that page, the more likely someone is to click through. There was an interesting study that was done by Google in 2012, and they found that sites that were ranking #1 organically still saw a 50% incremental click through from paid ads. So these ads are doing a great job for the practice in increasing that reach to more consumers who just type in those core keywords. And one of the other benefits of pay-per-click advertising is that it builds faster when you start up, and there's an opportunity to take some of that learning from the pay-per-click advertising to benefit the search engine optimization. If you think about mobile phones, that we're going to talk about in a minute, those pay-per-click ads are increasingly important because they have that top positioning on a very, very small screen. And very often when you do a search on a mobile phone screen, you may only see 1 or 2 pay-per-click ads initially until you scroll down further and further on that screen. So that's a great opportunity to create visibility early on. Now the third piece the third leg of that stool were local listings. And we strive in local listings for what we call NAP consistency. Now that NAP stands for name, address, and phone. And that is, if you want to think about it as a signature for your practice. The search engines use that name, address, and phone to identify your practice wherever it might be listed on the internet. And it's important to be sure that that is consistent wherever it's listed. And most practices will find their practice will be listed in a variety of ways because those directories pull from a variety of sources. So one might pull from the place where you licensed your practice, and it might pull in the name under which your practice was licensed. But the phone book might have it listed a little differently if you're doing business under another name, and so forth. So it's important to keep that consistent, and that's one of the things that we do with our doctors is establish that identity and then repeat it everywhere that there might be a listing. Now, those local listings, and most important, are Google and Yelp and Facebook would be the top 3 priorities. And on those listings, you have opportunity to put some enhanced information about the practice as well as offers. There's often places to post photos, videos, and even to establish your branding with your logo. And then patient reviews are critically important and have an opportunity to show on those local listings. Some of the things that have happened recently with Google have opened up some brand new opportunities on Google My Business to strengthen your visibility online. Just at the beginning of the year, Google offered the opportunity to upload 30-second videos into Google My Business, which beforehand you didn't have the opportunity to do that, just photos. So we have found that they've even tolerated videos a little longer than that, but if you're doing a video project, good to have some 30-second videos edited that you can post online on your Google My Business listing. Recently, they also offered an opportunity to post either offers or with a photo. And so you can place those on your listing. And recently, they also opened up a Q&A area. So consumers can go on your local listings, ask a question, and you need to be paying attention to that listing so that you can respond to those questions, or have someone in your practice that is. But it's becoming much more of an information center with a lot of opportunity to expand that information. I'm sure those changes will continue as that develops. So those local listings are very important, and those three things then are going to create that visibility, and they're going to help us to get people there that we can talk to and invite into the practice. Now that takes us to our third area, which is tracking and assessment. And it's possible to do this at a very advanced level. It's possible to do it at a very fundamental. And these are four things that would be really critical at a fundamental level. Good for you to know how much traffic's coming to your website, how many leads or contacts to the office have been generated, knowing how much revenue overall was provided from the internet, and then what your overall return is. What did you spend? What did it produce overall? So that you know how profitable this marketing has been. If you're able to do this at a more advanced level, one thing that's very important to understand is what we call the conversion funnel. And this is basically looking at all of the key decision points that a consumer goes through from the time they searched online to the time they become a new patient. So if you look at this conversion funnel, you'll see people go online, they search. You hope that they will find your listing, click on that and go to the website, at which they become a visitor. And hopefully they find enough content and interest on your website that they are inclined to contact the office. So they contact you, become a lead. They'll talk to someone or text them or email someone on the phone and make an appointment. They come in, get a treatment plan, and then they make a decision to go ahead with treatment and accept that and follow through and complete it. So there are basically 6 important decision points a consumer goes through. And if we can understand that purchase cycle and those decision points for a patient along the way, then we better understand how well we're doing in keeping people involved in that process throughout. And connecting the dots between what happens online and what happens offline in those decision points becomes critical. If we only understand whether we're getting leads, we may not understand whether those are converting to good patients and strong revenue. And so connecting those key points becomes very critical. And as we are tracking each of those decision points, it then will give us some actionable insights that would help us to be able to know how to work with each of those stages of the process to make them more effective. And here's an example of some of the things that we might get insights into. The keywords that we're using and which are effective in attracting great new patients and which are not. The search engines that they're searching on, which ones are profitable, which ones are not. Is it worth advertising in Bing and Yahoo, or is it not? How is our paid advertising doing versus organic search, and how do those balance each other out? What's the conversion rate in each of those? We'll want to look at timing. What days of the week are we getting our best leads and patients? What hours of the day are most productive for us to advertise? Does it make sense to advertise at night? Does it make sense to advertise in the early morning? Does it make sense to advertise on days we're not in the office? Those questions can be answered with really good tracking and analysis. We're increasingly seeing a shift in the devices that people use to do search, and often are going across platforms to do those searches. So understanding where those consumers are coming from helps us to better know how to target them. And then finally, looking at geography and knowing what areas, what zip codes are attracting our very best patients and which ones are not productive at all. If we can understand and have those insights into what's working, what isn't, we can have greater precision in our marketing. Imagine if you're just drawing a radius around the office, and maybe you've got 10 or 20% of those zip codes that are not producing for you. Imagine how much more effective you're going to be, and how much better your return will be if you can take the money that would have been used advertising those zip codes, and you can apply that to areas that are more productive. You're going to end up with a better return. So with those essentials in mind, those are kind of the fundamentals to making sure that you've got a great, effective online search. And there are many other things that'll make a difference, but those are some good foundations that, if those are in place, will help us be very effective. I want to talk to you next then about a couple of developments that have come into play recently that are having a pretty profound effect on the effectiveness of internet marketing. We're going to talk about mobile growth, and then also about the impact of reviews. We've been tracking how people are searching, what they're using to search over the last 4.5 years. And we took this tracking from the beginning of January of 2014. And at that point, about 67% of the searches that were being done for our dental offices were done on a desktop. We had about 22% that were being done on smartphones, and about 10% on tablets. Over the last 4.5 years, we've seen a migration of searches being done on mobile phones and less being done on desktop and tablets. And those lines crossed over the summer last year, May through July of last year. And then since then, they've never looked back. So currently, we're seeing about 55% of the searches that are being done on mobile phones, and desktop has now dropped to about 40% of those searches. That varies by practice, but taking our dental practices as a whole, that's about where it is. And tablets have declined from about 10% to 5%. And you say, why is that? What's driving that change? Certainly a couple of things. Mobile phones have and smartphones have been increasing in sales over those years. More people own smartphones. Those screens are getting better so that it's easier to search on a smartphone, and the user experience is much better. Google has been pushing website owners to make that experience more a richer experience and to work better. And as a result, more people are inclined to search on mobile phones. So what are the implications of all of this growth in mobile search? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we accommodate search on multiple devices. Our website needs to show well on a smartphone, on a tablet, on a desktop. And more than 3 years ago, Google said that they were going to penalize sites that weren't mobile friendly. That occurred on April 21st, 2015. That's become pretty commonplace now. What's happening currently is that there is more pressure to make that mobile experience easier and more pleasant. And just in July of 2018, Google then started making mobile ranking and how fast that mobile site loaded a ranking factor. And so while that probably isn't a major factor and probably only affecting it today, if it's really, really slow, we have to be sure that our site loads quickly and is easy for consumers so that they have a good search experience. If you're wondering about your load speed, there are a couple of places you can go just to test your website. This testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com will give you this little assessment of your load speed on a 3G connection and tell you how many seconds it takes for your website to load and what they estimate will be the loss of consumers if it isn't a fast load time. Visitors will leave your page if it takes too long to load that. A reasonable goal is about 3 seconds or less. That can be challenging for many dental websites that are video heavy, but the faster that can happen, the better off it is. And there are things that the webmaster can do to speed up that loading. So Google can also give you an assessment of the factors that are going to affect that speed and how you're doing with those factors. So hopefully you're up in this range in the 90s, rather than kind of in the middle ground or in the poor area where there's a lot that needs to be done. And this second site, which is for developers, can provide some hints on things that can be done to improve the speed of that website. So what are some of the implications of this move to mobile? For search engine optimization, one key thing that has happened this year is that Google has moved to a mobile first index. What that means is in the past, they had computers that stored the search results for desktop, and they had computers that stored the results for a mobile search. Just this year, they announced that they were going to only pay attention to those search results for mobile phones. And so if you have a mobile site that doesn't list or show all of your content on the website, or shows it poorly, and you don't rank for mobile, you're not going to rank well overall, because that is what they're basing the search results on now. It makes sense since more than half of the people are searching on mobile. For pay-per-click, it's had some interesting new implications as well. New keywords and phrases are becoming much more relevant and useful. Searches like near me or nearby or by have become very relevant and grown tremendously in the last couple of years. So if you need to be sure that those are incorporated into your pay-per-click campaigns, and that you can be found if someone is in an area near you and types in dental implant dentist near me, that you can be found. One of the other interesting developments has been that of voice search. And because of devices that can be done, searches that can be done by voice, even voice search that can be done on a cell phone, it's changing the way in which people search. Where if we're typing in, we might type in a keyword phrase that might be 2, 3, 4, 5 words maybe. When we do voice search, we more often will tend to ask questions. Where's the best cosmetic dentist near me? Where can I get a root canal done? And so the approach to search is often different. And we need to make sure that the content on our websites, it caters to that. So one thing that we found is sometimes questions on our website will help consumers find us more readily. We also need to be sensitive to the kinds of things they might search on in our pay-per-click campaigns, and make sure that we're relevant to those kinds of phrases and not just straight keywords. As far as conversion is concerned, when somebody has a cell phone, they've got the capability to be able to click on a number and connect right to the office. So it's important to make sure on your website that your phone number is clickable. In other words, they can just click that and connect to your office and don't have to punch in that number. A lot of consumers now prefer to text rather than to call. And so having that convenience of that communication is very important. Now, paying attention to how you direct people to contact you is very, very important. We did some research among our doctors that we work with. Because we track this back-end activity, we can see how many phone calls were made and how well those converted. So looking at phone calls, we had 65% of our leads that came in through the phone and 35% that came through email. you'll notice that when we look at the conversion rates of those two, that the phone calls converted at twice the rate that email did. And it's understandable. When somebody emails the office, you've got to track them down, you've got to connect with them. And that's different than somebody who calls, you pick up the phone, they're in the moment, they're right there, and you can make an appointment, and you have an opportunity to talk to them before they might go and talk to someone else. Texting as an opportunity then kind of fits between these two, and it gives you an opportunity to connect with them immediately and communicate with them without the back and forth of email. So for that reason, we've added that in with our doctors to give them that capability to text and communicate. In any case, it's important to give some thought to how you're letting them connect with you and make sure that you make that very convenient and easy to do. One of the things that's been compelling about texting is how frequently that's done on cell phones. And in a study that was recently done, that was printed in a newspaper, they looked at every age group from 18 to 64, male and female, to look at the activities that they were involved in on their cell phone. And in every age category for both women and men, with the exception of men 55 to 64, the most prominent activity on their cell phone was texting. And so they tend to text more than they call, and accommodating that with our patients can be very helpful to them to make that easy to reach us. Second thing I wanted to share with you is some developments with regards to reviews and understanding how consumers process those and the things that we need to make sure that we do so that they understand what an experience in our office is going to be like. A company called Bright Local that we use to monitor reviews for our doctors conducted a study recently that talks about the impact of reviews. And they conducted a study in October of 2017 with more than 1,031 US-based consumers. And they looked at a broad range of businesses. Here are some of the things that they found with regards to the impact of reviews. First of all, they learned that 90% determine if a business is good or bad. So if you look at 35% of them said they always do that, 31% they said they do it regularly, 27% said occasionally they do that. So very important in their evaluation of a business. And healthcare was the third highest category for which consumers read reviews. And you can see the only two things greater than that was restaurants and hotels. So this is a very critical area in terms of evaluation of businesses and whether they want to go and work with that business. This is an area that a statistic that was incredibly interesting to me. 85% said that they trust reviews as much as a personal recommendation. Wow. And that has some qualifiers if they believe they're authentic. For some businesses, perhaps not for others. But here's an interesting thing to consider. I looked at that and I thought, boy, that seems awfully high. But I had an experience in my own family that helped me to understand this much more clearly. I have a daughter who was in a new city, had her first child, was looking for a pediatrician. And she went and asked a friend who she would recommend as a pediatrician. She gave her the name of a doctor. Well, she did the same thing that most of us would now do, and that is she went online and looked at the reviews for that doctor. They were terrible, and they were so bad. That doctor hadn't paid any attention to his online reputation at all and what people were saying about him online. And as a result, she looked at those reviews and never even called the office. Yeah. She went and found another doctor. So that helped me to understand, in this case, she trusted those reviews more than she trusted a personal recommendation. And so those can be critically important in establishing credibility. What do consumers look at? Primarily, they look at star rating, they'll look at the quantity of reviews, and they'll look at the recency of the reviews. Those are the three most important things they consider. And you can see here lately that quantity of reviews has become a more important factor to consumers when they're considering that business. That recency of reviews also is important to them. They want to know that that's important today, just like it was to somebody who came into your practice 2 years ago.
Right. You know, Lane, I'll stop you. I've seen that often with dental offices where they make a big push for people to be online and review their practice, and then they stop doing it. And so you have all these reviews for June of 2017, and then it's just crickets after that. And it really does make a difference if you're seeing reviews constantly coming on. You know, it's a thing that's constantly happening inside any business, that there's reviews that are being consistently updated. I think that's very smart.
Yeah, that's true, Stuart. And what has changed is that this isn't just a program; it's a part of running a practice now, for the very reasons you've cited.
Right.
Having good, consistent reviews added to that site regularly are just a basic part of running a practice now. A few recent observations. We have seen in the last 12 months that Google is screening their reviews more. We've had some doctors who've lost reviews from Google, which has been a little bit of an unusual experience. They have announced just in the last few weeks that they are going to remove reviews that state a Google user was the one that provided those. So these are much older reviews that were probably posted a long time ago and don't have a name associated with them. So have to be particularly attentive to Google. There are some Google policies that govern what reviews they keep and pull off. They're becoming much more proactive about that recently. In Yelp, they have said in the last 12 months that they won't work with review tools any longer. So if you're using a review tool to request those reviews, you've probably seen Yelp get removed from that. And they've gone as far as saying that actively requesting reviews is against their policy. So they want these to just show up and have consumers naturally go and write those reviews on Yelp. What we have seen in terms of what works best, those review tools that allow a consumer to write that review right while they're there in the moment, either while they're in the office or just as they're leaving the office, have really been the most effective way to get growth in those reviews. It's important, though, to make sure that the Wi-Fi isn't available to them. Those need to be written on their cell phone without the benefit of the office. And so for now, it's possible to write those reviews while they're in the office on their cell phone. That may change in the future as they may become more sophisticated, but for right now that works. And a tool that we use and offer called Prospective Reviews has been very effective in helping patients to be able to share their experience in the office. So in summary, just to wrap up here, when you look at internet marketing, we have a number of doctors that say that this is the most important source of new patients that they have, perhaps other than referrals from their existing patients, their most important marketing opportunity. And given the fact that consumers now go online to find new dentists, it's critically important to have presence and visibility online. We talked about some essentials, strategic targeting, and the importance of creating uniqueness in your in what you're about, your positioning, talking about benefits as opposed to features, and making sure that you have strong appeal to the right target audience that is interested in the services you have to offer. Secondly, creating that visibility using both search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising, and creating that dominance on the search page along with local listings that have good, strong reviews. Tracking and assessment then becomes critically important to be able to assess what's working and what isn't, and increase your effectiveness. We talked a little bit about mobile growth and being able to adapt your marketing to that change in what people are using to search, and making sure you've got good, effective action paths with clickable phone numbers and texting options so that people can reach you easily. And then finally, the importance of reviews and how much impact those are having on consumers' decisions to contact you. So ultimately, when you look at that process, we're trying to reach new prospects, make sure that they're motivated to contact us, and then have the ability to convince them both through the marketing we do as well as the treatment that we provide to them in the office to convert them. And then following that, to make sure we track and improve it, the marketing that we're doing to take advantage of the very best things that bring our very best patients, and through that, grow your practice. So I hope that has been helpful to look at both some fundamentals as well as some ongoing changes that are occurring. If you've got some additional questions that you're interested in, some offline discussion, you're more than welcome to call me. Here's my phone number as well as my email. You're welcome to contact me. Be glad to help you. This is a great opportunity to reach the people that are interested in you and to be able to grow your practice on a continual basis.